What up, Oasis fam? It's Brennan. I'm back with a Going Deeper. That this last weekend, we just started a brand new series called Green Pastures, where we've been studying through Psalm 23. And over the next couple weeks, we're going to wrap it up. But in the first week, we studied verses 1 through 3. And in that, there was so much. Even just an introduction of the Psalm and David, then trying to do all 3 verses, it was a lot in one night. And because of that, there were some things that I just wanted to say that I didn't have the time to. And that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to focus in on verse 3 specifically, and some of the things that David says there that I think can really deeply apply to our lives that can help us better to follow the shepherd. And so the first thing he says in Psalm 23 verse 3 is he says, "The Lord, he refreshes my soul." And we use this point and we talked about how some of us, our souls, we feel like they're dying of thirst, right? Like it's just like we're going through this life and it's hard and we feel tired and worn out and we're struggling, yet the Lord has exactly what we need to be refreshed. And I wanted to tell this story, and now I've got the space to, where it was in 2020 over Labor Day weekend. My wife and I drove out to Colorado to hike a mountain with my brother. And he lived out there, and he lived just southwest of Denver. And we were going out there to hike what we call a 14er. If you don't know what that is, a 14er is a mountain that is 14,000 feet tall. For reference, if you live in South Dakota, Harney Peak, or Black Elk Peak as they now call it, is 7,000 feet, and it is the tallest peak in South Dakota. So you stack 2 of those on top of each other, and that's what we were traveling out to Colorado to climb. And in our ignorance, my wife and I, we thought just because we work out every once in a while or just because we were young and fit that we'd just kind of walk out there and climb up this mountain just like any other time. You know, like we'd hike Harney Peak, no problem. But my brother, who had climbed 10 or 11 different 14ers out in Colorado, he didn't inform us that this is a little bit different. And so we showed up for what would be about a 4 to 5 hour hike with pretty much the clothes on our back and each carrying 1 water bottle. And in a 4 to 5 hour hike, what you should have is a lot more things. Then my brother, he had packed 4 or 5 water bottles. He had Skittles and candy for quick sugars. He had granola bars and fruit for longer nutrients. And like he had a whole meal packed in his bag. He had plenty of stuff, but he didn't let any of us know. And so not only were we woefully unprepared physically, that the elevation right away at the beginning of the hike was just crushing us. Like we were just starting to walk. We hadn't even hit the steep incline stuffs and we were dying. By the time we got to about the 11,000 foot mark, that's when trees stopped growing. So from 11,000 to 14,000, the last 3,000 feet of this hike of elevation, the trees don't even have enough oxygen to survive, but yet we thought we'd crush it. And it was in that where I started to wrestle with just how difficult it was. Like, to be honest, we finished that, and I got to the top, and I passed out on the top of this mountain, took a 20-minute nap. I was so physically depleted. And part of the issue, again, as I said, we didn't bring enough water. And it took us probably closer to 6 hours to get back to the bottom because we were so out of shape that when we got back to the bottom, we drove straight to a gas station. And I bought a bunch of water, like 2 huge waters. I bought some Gatorades. I bought all of the things. And my wife and I, we just started chugging water. And it was in that moment where we felt refreshed again. It was almost like for the last 5 or 6 hours, we had felt the heaviness in our legs and our body's inability to just continue to climb, to put one foot in front of the other. It was so hard. But when we were refreshed, it's like there was new life brought to us. Honestly, it was life-changing, that one simple bottle of water after a hard hike. And yet so many of us were trying to live this life, and we're trying to climb the metaphorical mountain of the things that are in front of us, but yet we're woefully ill-equipped. That we don't know what it looks like to follow the Lord or to follow the shepherd. We don't know what it means to just put one foot in front of the other in faithfulness as we pursue the Lord. And because of that, we find ourselves fatigued. We find ourselves beaten down. We find ourselves not being able to just do the things that we think should be easy for us. And our souls are perishing in the midst of that. They're dying of thirst. Yet the Lord, he has exactly what you need. He has your refreshment. The other part of verse 3 that I wanted us to focus on was the last part. And it says there that the Lord does all of this. He leads us down the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. That God, he leads you, he protects you, he provides for you, he refreshes you, all for his own glory. And sometimes people wrestle with that. Like, why would God do all of these things for us, but really it's for him? And I'll explain it to you like this. And when I tell stories, I always got to squeak in a house example. So imagine you came over to my house Everybody from Oasis, we had just a huge party. It was amazing. Everybody came over. But when you showed up, you pulled into the driveway, and the driveway was all cracked, and the grass was super long, and the door was like hanging off the hinges, and you came inside, and the roof was leaking, and maybe there was garbage everywhere, and it kind of smelt, and then you saw like a rat scurry across, and there's no food, there's no appetizers, it's like the worst party ever because the house is totally run down. Now, when you leave that party, chances are you would maybe make mention to a friend or someone you came with about all the different things you saw. But more than all the different things you saw, like the tall grass or the rundown house, you'd probably walk away thinking, who could let it get like that? That more than just us talking about the object, we look to the owner of the object. That it's not the house's fault that it was beat down, run down, unkept. It was the owner's fault. So in the same way that some of us, as we're following the shepherd, God prides himself on caring for his sheep. Because if you were to look at a flock that's beat down, run down, that's disregarded, that's not taken care of, that would reflect poorly on the shepherd. So God, he desires to provide for us as his people because he prides himself in that we reflect the shepherd in his care. So as you go through this Psalm 23 and as you're reading through the green pastures, the quiet waters, the beauty of what this passage is, reflect on what it looks like for God to do that for his glory too. That there's a beauty and a benefit in us, but it's only because it aligns with who God is and what he wants to achieve. With that, I hope that helps you this week as you continue to follow the shepherd, and we will catch you next week for Oasis. Peace out.